I thought that it would be very important for us to share with you how the very first time I met Father Frank, he was in New York at a National Right to Life conference, and he was quoting my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And those words resonated so much when Father Frank shared those. Although I had had opportunity, because I grew up as the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., my father, Reverend A.D. King, his brother, they were very close. We were a very close family. But as I heard the words from my uncle's 1967 Christmas sermon, which he actually delivered just a few months before he was killed, those words resonated deeply into my heart. And I have come to know over several years that this was one of the strongest pro-life messages that I've ever heard. And I'd like to share that with you. I'll read those words. I'm not like Father Frank. He could quote them, he could preach them. But I want to read my uncle's words and then have Father Frank speak with us about why this particular speech is so very important. We're right here at Christmas time, if you're looking at this for the first time as well. And at Priest for Life, we have a wonderful store where we have books and music and all types of things that you might want to visit and share and tuck into those stockings as well. God bless you as we share this very special Christmas message. On Christmas of 1967, my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., preached the following words: "The next thing we must be concerned about, if we are to have peace on earth and goodwill towards men, is the nonviolent affirmation of the sacredness of all human life. Every man is somebody because he is a child of God. Man is more than whirling electrons or a wisp of smoke. Man is a child of God, made in his image, and therefore must be respected as such. And when we truly believe in the sacredness of human personality, we won't exploit people. We won't trample over people with the iron feet of oppression. We won't kill anybody." And to me, Father Frank, anybody means from natural conception or fertilization until natural death. And that means we won't kill old people. We won't kill sick people. We won't kill the little babies.
That's right. The beauty of human life, the sacredness of human life, as your uncle taught and as we teach, is universal. That's the beautiful thing about it. When we celebrate Christmas, we welcome Jesus, God made man, the Lord becoming human. He came for everybody. When he joined him, when he became human in the body of the Virgin Mary, he united himself with all humanity. So the rich, the poor, the sick, the healthy, the born, the unborn. Jesus makes no distinction, does he? He becomes one of our human family, and that raises all human life up to the heights of God.
And that's man, male and female, young or old, sick, rich, poor, any ethnic group, because we're one race, the human race. Acts 17:26, only one race of one blood. And you know, I remember when I think about Christmas in our family, in the midst of all the things, the bombings and the terrors and the battles, we would come together at Christmas. And we'd come together at a family. Often we were at the home of Martin and Coretta King, sometimes at Big Mama and Granddaddy's house. But we as a family would come together, and we would always share about the birth of Christ and the sacrifice. And I still do that now. I'm a mother and a grandmother. And at Priest for Life, we really genuinely take time and celebrate and remember the sacrifice of Christ. But I was listening to that speech. We will respect human life and human dignity. Respect life. Life is sacred. The sanctity of life. All of those words, they resonate today.
That's our message at Priest for Life, isn't it? And you know, when your uncle says in that sermon, the sacredness of human personality, what does that really mean? It simply means we belong to God.
Yes.
We come from God, we belong to God, we go back to God. That's sacred. In other words, it's not just by chaos or by chance. It's from Him, and it's not something that anybody else can possess. Only He possesses us. And if that's true, then as your uncle said, Christmas is not just a gift we receive, it's an obligation we accept. And the obligation is, if you're going to welcome Christ, you're going to welcome all His brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
born and unborn. And that's where, and that's the essence of the message that he preached.
Well, you know, we hope that as we share this, and it's not a political message, it's not a message that's meant to divide, but to just remind us of the sacredness of, as I say, the little baby in the womb, the little child growing up, the young adult, the mature adult, and the elderly. And if someone gets sick along the way, they're not devalued. And no matter whatever the state of their birth is, or the estate of their birth, they're still deeply valued. And I think that that is really sometimes what's wrong in the world.
Yes.
When I look, the natural disasters are following the disasters that are mirroring really the disasters that are happening in our society, where we no longer care about people. And we demonstrate that when we look at the mother, for example, who it has to make a decision. And rather than reaching out a hand sometimes to say, let's just wait a few hours and we're here to help. Let us let you know that you're loved and that you're cared for,
Right.
and that we care about you and we care about your child. Or the father who says, I don't want to take responsibility for this, or she won't let me be a part of this, or whatever the reason is. And if someone has forced the woman to be in that place where she feels as though there's no hope, we've got to look at all of these human conditions, all of these emotions that are bringing us to that point where we think we have to hurt a baby and the mother and the family, and say, wait a minute, there's hope. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, Jesus Christ. And if God could give us Christ, and at Christmas, if we can really celebrate the sanctity and dignity of that gift of Jesus Christ as our salvation, as our hope, then we can also offer that gift to a mother who's faced with a terrible decision, or a hard decision, or a father, and give that hope definitely to the baby in the womb.
Well, like your uncle said, and that's the basis of peace. We can't have peace if we're not welcoming other human beings. You know, your uncle's Christmas sermon that we just quoted reminds me of a Christmas hymn, O Holy Night.
Wow.
Because one of the verses of that hymn goes like this: Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother. And in his name all oppression shall cease. Now, because he mentions oppression in that sermon. He says oppression ceases when we celebrate Christmas, when we welcome Christ, when we welcome every human being as sacred. You know, the abolitionists used that verse of that hymn
I do know that.
to strengthen their determination to set free the slave. We use the verse of that hymn. I have quoted from it constantly to say it's time to set free the unborn as well. Because again, there's no distinction, there's no discrimination here. We're talking about welcoming everybody. And as we often say, your uncle, your dad, the whole civil rights movement wasn't just to set free the African American, it was to set free everybody. It was based on the principle that we welcome every human life.
You know, it's remarkable that you should mention the abolitionists. I was thinking, right before you said that, I recently saw a film, 12 Years a Slave.
Yes.
And it was talking about slavery and everything. And then I wrote again, because I often blog or tweet or put on Facebook, that a baby is like a slave in the womb of his or her mother. And when I say that, somebody wrote back, would you please stop saying that? A baby is not like a slave. It's the mother who is being oppressed by being forced to have a baby that she's not ready to have. And I said, no, we can love them both. And the abolitionists, therefore, and Father Frank, you know this story very well. When my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was killed, my father, his brother, Reverend A.D. King, I was ready to just be angry. I wanted to hate somebody. I wanted to strike out. And I said, I hate white people. They killed my uncle. And my daddy said, you can't hate white people. White people march with us. White people die with us. He was talking about that abolitionist that you just mentioned, that one who could care about every human being. And so I'm thinking about the abolitionist movement. I'm thinking about the Catholic Church and the priests who often marched with us during the days of the Civil Rights Movement. Who were beaten, oppressed with us. And I'm thinking about a preacher, Father Frank Pavone, who stands up and reads the Christmas sermon or preaches the Christmas sermon of Martin Luther King Jr., who fights just like the abolitionists in that day, when there were people of goodwill of different ethnicities who fought to see the slaves free. Well, in the 21st century, we fight together. Here we stand again, a priest and a niece of Martin Luther King Jr., fighting for the most oppressed in our society, and that's the little baby who's threatened to have his or her life taken by abortion. And so, but we want it to be clear. We care about the baby, we care about the mother, we care about the father, the grandparents, the community, we care about everybody. But we first have to speak out. Oh goodness, for those little babies who can't speak for themselves.
That's right. Well, let's celebrate Christmas by setting ourselves free and letting Jesus set us free from all kinds of discrimination. You know, it really is discrimination against the unborn, this abortion license. Let's follow, let's live, let's preach the words of your uncle. It's time to love every human life, to welcome every human being, and that's going to be peace on earth.
Wow. Okay, well, I agree, and this always gives me hope when I hear these words and I read the beautiful story of the birth of Jesus and the wonderful sacrifices we follow through the gospel. And so at this time, at Christmas, we want people to know, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling oppressed, if you're concerned about even the question of abortion. I actually had abortions myself, and the Lord healed me. I am affiliated with the Silent No More Awareness campaign, with Rachel's Vineyard, the healing, the hope. This is a season we don't want you to be sad. We want you to be encouraged. We want you to know that we are praying for you. And if you're an individual and you say, I don't have a family, I don't have anybody who cares about me, we want you to know that we are praying for you and that we love you. And there again, God loved you so much that he gave his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, that whosoever, and that includes you, who believes on Jesus shall not perish, but have everlasting life. So we wish you Merry Christmas and much love from Priest for Life, African American Outreach.